Well, I I finished the main story of 2.6, part 2, the finale of 2.6 in essence. And as usual, after I finish it, I like to spend some time and put together how I feel about it. And I've started doing these things where I create documents and have them out where it's written and has some images associated with it so I can actually get my thoughts across. And that's what I'm going to do today. This is my overall thoughts of the 2.6 main story part 2. Um, Let me know how you feel about this, if you like this format. The second time trying this out, let me know if you have any thoughts or inputs, how you'd like this to be. But let's not delay any further. Let's get right into it, all right? Ooh. So, I finished it Monday. This is a Friday. Let's see how we go. Let's see how I feel about it. Anyways, out the gate, opening. I liked it. It sets the pace. You first initially get it's basically right after part one, almost like immediately, I would say, and you were just kind of everyone's celebrating. They're having a party, and you're walking around talking to people, and then you mention and someone's like, "Who's that?" And you're like, you know, the priestess, the one that's been involved, the one that, if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have been able to beat the false sovereign. They're like, "Man, I don't know who that is." And then you're like, "All right, let me go talk to this other person, talk to some other people." They're like, "I don't know who they are either." You're like, "All right, what's happening here?" "Okay, there's a priestess over there. Let's go and talk to this priestess." She's like, "I don't know who you're talking about either." And you're like, "What the fuck?" And then you're like talking to Augusta, and she's like, "I feel like I'm missing something, but yeah, I don't know who that is either." And you're just like, "Am I getting gaslit here? Am I tripping? What's going on?" And obviously, we had hints that kind of disappeared. No one remembers her because at the end of part two, there's a side quest, or you could talk to other people and they'd be like, "Who's as well?" So this was interesting. It's kind of cool being gaslit in a weird way. I enjoyed the conversations. Obviously, the NPCs, the voice actors for them did a great job, which is I love to see this. I love to see it when NPCs, not just the main characters, but the NPCs are doing a great job as well. Um, and so yeah, you're like, all right, something's wrong here. Let me go investigate. Um, and we see some traces of because we have our bracelet and stuff, and we follow the traces. And then we meet kind of, I guess, like a last bit of before she disappears, like a memory fragment of her. But she's still aware. And so we see here, and she's sad. Kind of like I mean, it obviously looks like she knows she's dead or gone completely in essence. What's the difference? I mean, it's hard to tell the difference between dead and disappeared. I guess the difference is forgotten, which we'll get to that. And she leaves this really good quote. It hits me really hard. She goes, "I'm sorry, but even I fear being forgotten." And that is such a fucking good quote. Oh my God. I feel like I think the biggest worry with people, humanity in general, all the way back thousands of years, is everyone fears being forgotten and stuff. Everyone wants to make their mark in history and not be forgotten, and it's a terrifying thing to think of in a weird way. And we try to grab hold of her, and she just kind of disappears, and you're like, "Oh my God, dude!" And she sacrificed everything. You kind of get this realization of what she did and how she interacted, and she kind of lied to Augusta as well about how the ending was supposed to play out. And she thinks that story's over, and we're like, "Nah, I don't like that. I don't like this ending. I'm not a fan." And so we're like, "Well, let's go talk to Lilibet, the high priestess. She probably knows." So we go up to the church, the chapel, the location, and there's no priestesses there. So we start exploring. We find this underground area, and we meet Avidius there. I love Avidius. He is such a good character. Um, I loved him in the part one. In part two, he's obviously, we kind of got a bit of this, and then in part two, he's going through this like, holy shit, who am I? What am I? He's having a midlife crisis here. He mistakes us for like Christopher, or he mistakes someone else as Christopher, and we know who that is. And he's just like, someone rewrote me, and my memory's fake, and did everything I thought I believed, and experience is not real. He's just completely fucking shook. Oh my God. Um, he's completely shook. And I'm kind of interested. This is kind of interesting thing is he's going through it, And Rover doesn't really take it consoling. He doesn't try to console him. He just kind of stands and observes and in a way questions the Vidius, which is intriguing. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting at least some options where we could console him, but I don't. As far as I remember, there wasn't any options in the options we could talk to him. There wasn't anyone to console him and stuff. And we didn't really console him till the end when we gave him the rose petal, and that's the last we see of him. He doesn't. We don't really see him afterwards, which I'll be real, um, was kind of disappointing. I was kind of hoping to see more of him. I'm expecting 100% we're going to get more of him in 2.7. I'm sorry, it's so obvious. He's being set up to sacrifice himself for the greater good. It's an obvious tell. This is one of those red flag moments. You're like, I see this. It's a death flag coming from a mile away, which does happen. I'll be really fucking sad because his voice actor was killing it, man. His voice actor's so good. He's putting his heart and soul into it. Every word he speaks just rolls off the tongue perfectly. You can really feel just the chaos happening in his mind and of who he is. It's really great job. And then, we move over and we're talking to the high priestess. And we talk to her about and she goes back to her records and we're like, well, there's a record of which is intriguing because technically she doesn't exist, so no one should remember her. But then she died 3 years ago, which is odd because people should still remember someone who died 3 years ago, but no one remembers that even. So it's kind of conflicting in a weird way. And we realize she's being anchored in reality, or what's left of her is being anchored in reality, by us on accident. Technically her fault because she gave us the little bracelet and stuff. She gave her bracelet to the guy that fate doesn't really fucking control. Not too surprising that we kind of anchored her in reality there. um, but that was a cool little bit there. I'll be honest, like the story, like how we get to fate in the past and the present, and someone that's forgotten but still exists, but yet also died. Kind of like I'll be honest, I was like, oh my god, this is really confusing. I had to really process this, and to be honest, the answer I got to might be different from where the answers y'all got to. Maybe this is a story that has a lot of open roads to per se. The same ending but different ways to get there. Who keeps messaging me? God damn it. Anyways, uh, then we go down to where supposedly died 3 years ago, and it's just a fucking river of chaos. And we go, well, I want to go in that river. I want to go walk into chaos. And a little bit's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Why the fuck are you doing? Don't fucking do that. And we're like, no, I don't like how this story ends. I want to change this. So we go into chaos and we have this little cool little QTE. I enjoyed this. I'll be honest, they killed it with the QTEs across this whole part too. I loved every single one of them. It felt interactive. I was very responsive in the story. Huge W, liked it. Now the chaos is really confusing to me. Is it similar to how a sonorosphere is? That's what I feel like it is in essence. But some people say it's like the in between hell and heaven as well. So I don't really know what the chaos is exactly. It's kind of a bit of everything and nothing at the same time. But I'm still trying to process what that is. And chaos almost feels like new. What is chaos and how does chaos connect to the dark tide as well? I don't know. I have no idea. Anyways, progressing. We got in a forced relationship. I'll be honest. The forced hand holding was kind of funny. It was a funny mechanic. But they did a good job with it. It wasn't like a drag where you're like you have to do a walking pace and stuff. Wherever you went, she went. It was fun. I was laughing my entire like the first like when the second it happened, I was laughing for like 5 minutes because I was just spinning around. I was like, it was funny. It was good though. It was very sweet. A lot of people definitely got very attached to that. Um, but it was good. And we encountered a fragment of Sorry, I skipped a beat there, but we encountered a fragment of She doesn't have a lot of her memories, so we're like, okay, let's go pick up these fragments. We're putting together this puzzle. And so we go through chaos, and we're moving, and then we encounter her father. Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm gonna be leaving out some portions of the story that I just didn't really care to talk about and stuff like that. I'm only going to talk about the stuff that really stuck out to me. So we're skipping it. We're skipping through this pretty substantially, and we meet her father, but they don't tell us, you know, that's her father, but it's pretty obvious. And later on, they do tell us. But anyways, he's called the bow forging blacksmith. However, he was currently working on a sword. So, all right, guys, like if this guy's name is the bow forging blacksmith and he's currently blacksmithing a fucking sword, like, yeah, you know, like, okay, come on. Anyways, and he just goes, hey, you came to me to make a bow, right? You wanted a bow, right? You know? And she doesn't remember, and you don't really remember either. And he's like, you want to make that bow? We're going to need some linarum bow and stuff. That's your favorite thing. That's exactly what you wanted to make it out of. And you're like, okay, well, let's go look for a linarum bow. And you walk through and you find some linarum bow, and we're off to collect it. And we realize linarum bow is kind of like, in essence, like the collected fragments of her memory in reality is what I think it is. And we have to, finish it, finish this puzzle. And so you kind of know what your goal is. You finish the puzzle, you create the Lenarm bow, and then maybe we'll get to some resolving factor there. So you're like, cool, let's go do this. And so we're, after the bow, we come upon two doors. One is following fate, the other one is not following fate. And I was like, well, let's not follow fate. And then we tried to do that, and fate was like, hell no, you're not following fate. Or sorry, yeah, you're not following fate. Get back here. And we fail. And this is kind of them basically telling us, Yuno's trapped. She's stuck. Fate is a fickle bitch. And they have locked us in on fate. We don't get to choose. And I think this was them just telling us that. And it forces back on this path where we have to follow fate. We have to keep doing what fate dictates. And it's a quite little, like, a little tease there of, like, how difficult it is for Yuno. This is my favorite part, though. Moving on, we're progressing. We meet Yuno, and then we talk to her a bit, and she's kind of going like, what the fuck's happening? How are you here? You shouldn't be here. And then eventually we become Yuno, and we start telling the fate of people that come to us. Because this is what Yuno used to do in the past, but she quit it after a while. And so we're like, why did she quit it? Well, let's do it, And so we told the fate for 4 people. This was my favorite part of this whole story. This was so fucking interesting. It was very interactive and just, oh my god, it was so good. So let's rock through here real quick. So yeah, we became Yuno and 4 people. The first person asks about whether he'll find victory defeating the specific monster, this one right here. And we look into it, and this is the image we see, and we tell him exactly how it is. Yep, you win, that's it. Easy. And he goes, cool, I appreciate it, I'm out. And you're like, okay, this is easy, this is pretty good. And then we meet the second person, and she's like, hey, I'm not sure if this relationship's going to work out, is it? And you look into her fate, and we see heartbreak. There's kind of divorce happening up here, and you're like, oh my god. And you go, okay, you know what? Live in the moment. Maybe me telling her that they'll divorce in the future will fuck everything up and that will cause fate to happen. So you go, live in the moment. She goes, thank you, I appreciate it. And she goes away. You're like, all right, this is it. And the third one was the most interesting. It's this guy, and he has a brother who is his twin brother. And he goes, my brother's a soldier. I'm a literature guy. I'm a book guy. My brother's fate was told that he's going to die in the next battle. I don't want that to happen. I want to see my fate. And so you look into his fate, and you see him dying of old age with a family, with a sword in his hand. And you tell him that. He goes, oh, I know what to do. I'm going to swap places with my brother. My brother will go learn literature and be at peace, and I'll go and be a soldier. And you've already looked into my fate, so I should survive this battle. We win. And you're like, yeah, good job. Keep going and keep doing it. And he goes off happy, and you're like, all right. Now there's a war. I was like, something bad could happen, but all right. But anyways, and the fourth one was kind of sad. I can't lie. The fourth one, this little girl comes up, and I think she's talking about her grandfather, and she wants to meet him, and she doesn't know he disappeared. Because you know how you tell kids when their parents or grandparents die, you don't tell them they died. You tell them they went away. They went to go do something. And you know her grandfather's dead. And you give her some hope. You're like, you know what? Here's some hope. When those tears dry out, you'll see your grandfather. And she believes it. She's happy. She's like, thank you, because no one else believed me. And she goes on. And you're like, okay, cool. But then it gets a little dark. It gets a little bit dark. Afterwards, after you do that, we're walking away with Yuno, and we start to see the resolving factors of what each of those things happened. The first one, the first guy, yes, they killed the monster, but one of his teammates was severely wounded and can no longer be a champion and a fighter anymore, and this just wreaks havoc on the guy. He's heartbroken about this fact. Yeah, he won, but one of his friends is was so badly wounded he can't live a life anymore. He's destroyed. The second one, even though you thought maybe if you told her be happy in the moment, it might resolve something in the future, it doesn't. They still divorce. It's heartbreaking. You're like, God damn it, the kid's there crying. You couldn't change fate. This third one was the most insane to me. They swap places. The brothers swap places. The guy, he goes out to fight. His brother goes out to learn literature and travel beyond, but he dies. His brother dies. And then this guy, you think, oh, he's going to live a peaceful life and die to old age. No, he gets wounded in the fight, severely wounded. He becomes a cripple. And then he lives the next 70 years of his life being a cripple. And he's completely destroyed. He's completely broken. And that's the big example there of fate being so fickle. It's like, oh, you tried to trick us? You tried to trick us? Well, you're a cripple now. You're going to live for the next 50, 40 more years as a cripple, hating your life. That is brutal. And then the last one, the fourth one, the girl. She realizes, and her hope is all gone, and her grandfather's dead. And she's just taken over by sadness, and it really is sad. And I think these were all examples of how, yes, we can translate fate in our own ways, but even fate has its own ending that not even even if we can see the ending, its translation of the ending is completely different. And even if we try to avoid it or change it or do something in the moment to change our fate at the end, fate always wins. And it is such a good telling here. This was such a good storytelling. I was a huge fan of this. This moment right here was probably my favorite moment in the whole story, 100%. Um, and this adds realization to us as the player of how much Yuno wanted to stop fate. This is like her justification of why she wanted to change fate. She also saw her mother's fate and how she died, and she couldn't change that as well. And then she tried to, change fate verbally by counseling people or giving people other options, and that didn't work. And so she stopped telling the fate of people. She was like, I don't want to tell the fate of people anymore. And you can kind of see when she saw the end of Septimont, how badly she wanted to change it. And the reason why she sacrificed herself as well. It was so interesting. I love this. And so progressing, we're skipping a couple bits. We obviously had a conversation with Augusta, but I'm just going to kind of skip over that. I'll be honest, it kind of went over my head. They were speaking, it was very, what's the word I'm looking for? What they were talking about was very just so complicated for me to understand over my head. It felt like it was stuff you would think of, but even I couldn't come to an answer even days later of what they were talking about. So I don't even know what to write about that. I enjoyed it. It was cool. It was quick. It was a conversation with Augusta, but I was really confused. I was like, oh, I think it was great though. I really do. But it's like one of those, well, I need to go study. I need to go get a college degree to understand this. That's what it felt like to me, at least. But anyways, moving on. We go to where Yuno supposedly died 3 years ago. And we go to the past there. And we follow her along with the band, the party she's following with. Because she said she read their fate and they're going to die there. And she wants to change it. She really does. And so she goes with them to see if she can change that fate. And we follow along with her. And she tried. She tried to change the fate of those people. All the warriors that went into a battle that they knew they were going to die. And she really did. And she couldn't succeed. She could not. Repeating, she could not change the fate of those and save them until we're getting there. And that's Yuno's little thing happening there. The creation of Fate's bow. That's the thing that happens. That's what I think happens. That's what changes fate here. Is we're doing our own thing. Yuna kind of disappeared, and she's doing her thing over there, and we're here near the Lunarum bough of the tree, and we finished it. It sprouted. The leaves came out. It's complete, and Yuna's father comes back, and he goes, "Hey, let's make Fate's bow." That's what I think they're doing. My translation, personally, is I think we created the Lunarum bow, which then her father forges into Fate's bow, which he then gives to Yuno, and then Yuno uses this as like a medium or something to break Fate. That's what I think is happening there. Maybe I could be completely wrong, but I still like my ending. I really do. Um, I really loved his character. I'll be honest, his voice actor is so good. Whenever he talked, it was very calming. I felt at peace. It was super weird almost. But I was sitting there like, oh my god, dude, it's not the music. This guy's just how he talks. It's like it, it brings me at ease. And not in a weird way, but just in such a good way. And I was like, he's doing so he sounds like a father. And it's so fucking good. I love it. Um, and he, like I said here, he felt too alive to be a fake or creation from Yuna's memory. Even though we said, "Oh, I'm a fragment of the past, a fake, a creation of Yuna's memory," I don't believe that. He feels too real of a character to just be that. I felt like it was like chaos itself became a thing and is speaking through him as a person. It felt like an inanimate thing I was talking to. I wasn't talking to a fragment of the past. I was talking to chaos, or I was talking to the light, the dark. I don't know what it was. Even though he probably is a fragment of the past, but I really felt like he was like this ancient being almost. It was crazy. It was really was. I loved the engagement, the talking we had with him. It was really well done. So anyways, we cut down Fate's or the Lunarum bow, and her father forges it into Fate's bow. That's what I think he did, and it gets sent off. And going back to where Yuno is, she's losing this battle. She can't save everyone. She's trying her hardest, and she's having a defeat moment. She's heartbroken, and then she grabs hold of something. She looks down when she's defeated. She sees the Lunarum bow. She hears the banging of the hammer, and she grabs onto Fate's bow and she pulls it back up. She pops up and she's like, "I'm ready to rock and roll. I'll change Fate for myself. Fuck it. Fuck you, Fate. I'm gonna change it." She goes to action, and then we roll into the final fight. Um, there wasn't really a boss fight. It was just us fighting a bunch of ads. I do like the fact though they basically just gave us an overclocked She was cracked. We were we were basically like on steroids, and it was fun. You were just zipping around the area, just basically B2 bombing everyone. You're like boom, 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 airstriking everybody. It was fun. I really liked it. Um, and then it proceeds into the final cutscene. And that music kicks in. You know it. Kuro loves their last 30 minutes. The last 30 minutes is where Kuro's like, "Oh, let's drop a fucking cutscene and a half with some banger music." And they do it every time. They've been doing it 2.0, 2.2, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6. Just insane. And we got another one. The music was another chef's kiss. Y'all have been killing it. I've been loving it. Amazing. Yuna's voice actor was just putting her heart and soul into how she spoke. It was so good. And just look at these screenshots, man. It was a beautiful moment when the moon kind of changing and zipping around in the background, and then there's multiple Yunos as like the time flies by, and she's defeating all the enemies, and she's trying her hardest, and in the end, she does succeed. She saves someone. She saves one of the people that's fated to die, and that's when she realizes she can beat fate. And that probably is what leads up to her sacrificing herself. And then it all replays again, she disappears, replays, it's this crazy cycle almost. I love the fact the moon was changing the background from being corrupted to being purified. a little touch there. I loved it. I really did. Um, and then we enter the void. Well, obviously we put the wristband on her. I really like that. We're reaching up with her wristband, and she's leaning back after pulling at the bow because she boom, and then we put the wristband on her arm. I thought that sequence was really well done. And we enter the void. Um, and I think I understood this properly. I probably misunderstood this, but I think we changed fate into being a restrictive line. It's now a branching line, an infinite sea of possibilities, as Yuno said. And the void is everything. It's not longer just a void of darkness and sadness. And actually, the actuality, the void is the light. It's the everything, which technically, from what I've heard with the color patterns and stuff, everything or having all the colors is darkness. If I'm not wrong, I could be wrong there, but I heard this a while ago. Is every color meshed together is actually just the color black, like darkness itself, um, which in is interesting because then light would be the absence of color, right? Which would be light is technically the one route versus darkness would be all the routes, as in all the colors. But yeah, maybe I'm getting confused. But anyways, it was beautiful. And we talked to a bit. And she's like, "We don't, we don't have to stay here. Let's go back. Let's go back." And you're like, "All right, let's go back." And so we enter back, and I skipped over it, but we enter back and Yuno's not there. You're like, where the fuck is Yuno? And so you fly back to where the party's happening, and they do this really amazing. I really like this. You're flying, and little scenes are popping up on your screen of us talking to Yuno, and Yuno talking, and me talking, and Augusta talking. It's kind of like a replay almost, and I really enjoyed this. It was just like, oh, this is cool to see. It's like watching fireworks on the 4th of July in a weird way. That's what it felt like to me. We get back, and you're running up, and you're like, oh, there's some priestesses. Have you heard of Yuno? And they're like, oh, no, we haven't heard of Yuno. And you're like, oh, fuck. Did I mess up? Did I mess up? And you're like, no. And you run around, you're talking to more people. Have you heard of Yuno? Like, no, but I did see a girl run by and she had like blue hair, and you're like, oh fuck. And you're just like, you're hunting for and then pops up and she's like, I tricked you, fuck, ha ha ha. You're like, all right, ha ha ha. Yeah, I saved your life. Stop being a little bitch. Like, I saved your life. You could have just waited for me. But anyways, so we succeeded. We sort of succeeded. We didn't succeed fully. We might have changed reality ever so slightly. No one really remembers except for us, which sucks because was Augusta's best friend, almost to the extent of they consoled each other a lot. So that's kind of sad that Augusta kind of lost her best friend. But Yuno's alive, so that's huge. Now, what the part I'm really confused about? Technically, now Yuno's no longer a priestess, right? Maybe. Is that what I'm thinking? She's no longer a priestess? Anyways. Also the other thing is whenever the priestesses were talking, they're like, anytime I look into fate, I can only see the white blinding light now. And you're like, oh shit, did I do that? So did we like jack up fate? Can people no longer like read fate now? Did we like completely like kill an entire economy around the priestess's job and they can no longer see fate? Maybe I'm misinterpreting this, but that's what I feel like we just did. Anyways, so yeah, and we have a party with and we just have fun together, and that's the end of this story. And now for my final rating, my thoughts here. So I'm going to work through this. Stay with me now, okay? The story itself, the raw story they were trying to tell, I gave it 8 out of 10. It was very well done. I got kind of confused, to be honest, about fate, about the past, the present. No one remembers but technically she was alive. She died 3 years ago, but she doesn't exist. And you're like, what the fuck is happening? It's kind of difficult for me to identify what was real or not. I couldn't fully grasp it. I still think it was a really well done story. That's why I gave it an 8 out of 10. I think it was almost like a bit over my head, to be real, which is probably the fault of my own, honestly. But moving on, execution. So if you watched my last review for the part 1, I gave the execution a 6 out of 10 because the pacing was kind of like this. We were like, there was no like consistency in the pacing, and I felt like we were going like from highs to lows and stuff, as in like how the story progressed. It was really confusing. Not confusing, it was like annoying for me. But the pacing in this one was very well done. They set the pacing in the beginning. This is how it's gonna go, where it's gonna be a very not conversation heavy, but it was gonna be a very slow paced, non-action story, and they kept it consistent all the way through. All the way through. There was no change. To be honest, it kind of got better where it was like, oh, now it's conversation, but you can do some interaction, some QTEs. I like that. The execution was amazingly well done. I was very satisfied with it, 100%. Um, Great job. I really liked it. I'm when I say execution, I do not mean, oh, everything has to be a battle fight or everything has to be a boring me watching. When I say execution, I mean you set the pace, you stick with the pace. If you tell me the pace is going to be boom, 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 I expect boom, 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 boom. But when you say the pace is going to be boom, 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 and then you go boom, 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 I get confused. I go, well, you said the pace was going to be like this, and then you changed it. But the execution here was well done. It was a pace, consistent. I liked it. Good job. Good. Moving on. Music was amazing. In Moments Does Moon Persist, which I believe we are listening to right now. Let me check. Yep. Great job. It's on my playlist. I love it. It was a beautiful song. The only thing I'm sad about is I wish there was more music because um personally, that's the only song that stuck out to me. I know there was a lot more other songs. I looked at the playlist. There was like 10 songs for that part 2, but that was the only one that really stuck out to me that was like hit me right in the soul. So, yeah, but great job. I loved it. It's another playlist banger, you know. Visuals, you know, it's Kuro. We love our visuals. They do a great job. The 2D art, I love the 2D art. Now, obviously, I don't want them to spam it where they're like, oh, we're going to substitute 2D art for things like that shouldn't have it. But yeah, the 2D art was amazing. The final fight animation was gorgeous. It was so beautiful. I'm a huge fan of darker colors, like the darker blues, the black color, like the dark purple color, a very like non-bright colors, and it was just pleasing for the eyes. The blues in the background, it was like just watching like a mosaic of blue. It was amazing of a fight scene. Bosses. I'll be honest, when I'm playing a main story, I kind of expect a boss, at least a minimum. Um, there were no bosses. And now you could say, well, you just talked about pacing and the pacing being consistent, and yes, but obviously at the end we always get a fight, and it was just kind of fighting mobs, and they had like a fake boss in there, you know, the knight, but that doesn't really count. So I gave it a 0 out of 10, but I'm not gonna like let this 0 out of 10 drag this fucking score down. I'm just gonna I'm gonna leave it there as a note saying, hey guys, I would like more bosses. I'm not gonna fucking, you know, drag the overall score down because of there not being bosses, just to let y'all know. But I wish there was a boss in the main story. Just being fair there. That's my expectation, at least. Story Zone, 6 out of 10. It was beautiful. I loved it. It was gorgeous. I just want to go back there. As far as I'm aware, I could be wrong. You can't go back and explore it. And I feel like it is almost a waste of money, like you're throwing money away when you create beautiful zones and then you can no longer go back and explore them. It's kind of like seasons almost, where you create, when you know game companies make seasons and then they take like everything in the season away and stuff like Destiny does. It's kind of like, okay, well, you spent all this money to create this beautiful mosaic art piece of a zone that we could explore the main story in, but now I can't go back to it. I don't like that. I would like to go back to it personally. So just leaving that in here, that dropped my score down substantially. Now maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong and we can go back there and I just a fucking stupid dumb idiot, you know, bring that score right back up. But and now 6 out of 10. The overall score, you probably saw that, an 8 out of 10. The same score I gave the last one. And now you're saying, well, you had a lot more issues with the last story than you have with this one. You've been praising this story a lot more. Why do they have the same scores? So originally, I would probably give this story, this overall part 2, a 9 out of 10. But I dragged it down 1 point to an 8 out of 10 because I have no idea what this story is involved in the main story. I'll like keep it a buck here. There are parts that push the main story, like the Avidius part there, and then maybe you could say this is the wrap up of the part one, which yeah, I could sort of agree with you there. But we are 2.7 is the finale. It is the end game. We have got to, this is the point where we start bringing everything together. We're bringing everything together. We're connecting all of the parts of the stories and stuff like that. Um, I should I should not be confused of how this story is progressing or what the hell's happening here when 2.7 is the finale. Now I know how they're going to do this. 2.7 part 1 is going to be the initial part of the finale where it's like um fucking the part 1 of like, oh, all this bad things happening now, it's the end, and then part 2 is the wrap up. I'm sorry. I think we should be at the point where we should have an identifying idea of how the end is supposed to happen here, and I felt like we should have got that in the part 2 story of 2.6. So when we roll in the 2.7, we have an idea. We're like, oh my god, there's an end coming. They've been hinting at it. We got a hint of it in 2.5. We even had a hint of it in the part 1 of 2.6. I had zero hints of the end, the finale, in the part 2 here. Um, honest talk here, guys. This was a character quest. It was a amazingly well done character quest. Like the level of it being done was as good, if not better, than some main stories. But it was a character quest. I still enjoyed it. I substantially enjoyed it. But I felt like this didn't push the main story enough. Now everyone has a line they draw where they say, hey, I only need it to push the main story this much to say it counts as a main story. My level, my line I draw is a lot higher. I expect when a main story comes out and they say it's a main story, I expect it to push the narrative forward substantially. Now, you could say this is a wrap up of the narrative, but I feel like we're at the point with the finale coming up that this shouldn't be a wrap up. This should be an opener almost, or a an interlude into the fact of the main ending coming up of Arena Sita. But to each their own. I'm still keeping my overall score. It's an 8 out of 10 story. It is an amazing. I still think this is an amazing story. I still think it's way better paced than part one, personally. But my overall favorite story, I'm going to say it again, 2.4, part 2, this main story, is the best main story, personally, to me. It was amazing. My favorite one. I loved every bit of it, and it's still I would say personally the most perfectly paced story in Wuthering Waves. Okay? But anyways, I'm getting out of hand. That's it. That's my rating. 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. They did a great job. I'm really excited for 2.7. They've been dropping so many goddamn hints about the finale, man. I want to know what's happening. And now, obviously, you could probably infer upon it through lore, through the trailers they've put out and stuff like that. But, whatever. I want the finale. I want to know what happens. Plus 3.0 is right around the corner, baby. We're closing in on fucking the new Federation or whatever it's called. Oh my god. I am so excited. Anyways, that's it. Let me know your thoughts. Please let me know your thoughts. Do you like this? Do you like this way of how I tell the stories here? Where I go through as like a Word doc and stuff. Would you prefer me doing this? Please let me know. If you enjoyed this, a like and subscribe is also very appreciated. By the way, forgot to say this. I digested the story differently. Instead of bursting through the 3-hour story, I took it in 2 parts. I did an hour and a half, a little over an hour and a half, like the first day, and then the second day, I did the other hour and a half, and I was much more involved in the story. I much prefer doing that. I'm going to continue doing that as well so I can properly digest the story because 3 hours of sitting down is a long time and it wore me the fuck out. And I think it was like me doing that was ruining my experience of playing the story. So I think from now on, I'm going to do what I did in part 2, and that is play half, take a day break, and then play the other half. And I think that's been helping me a lot digest the story a lot better. But anyways, that's it. Appreciate y'all sticking around for fucking 40 minutes. God damn, you're troopers. Anyways, have a good one. Go away now, and ciao.